Say hello to say hello first.
Albert Einstein once said, "The key to originality is hiding your sources." Creative psychologist Edward de Bono also said, "Creativity involves breaking out of established patterns in order to look at things in a different way." We're all aware of the phrase, "less is more," but does that apply to all aspects of life? Creativity, even music? So what would happen if a composer's approach to composition was challenged? Would they be able to quickly adapt to the changing environment? In this documentary, we will be asking 4 composers of varying musical styles to take part in 5 tasks specifically designed by musicologists. This is An Hour in a Minute.
Hello, I'm Sihui Zhou. I'm doing a MA course on musicology. I research about music therapy, ethnomusicology, and music education. And in this project, I would like to explore the combination of Western style and Eastern style. Our project is about challenging creativity, so musicologists will set a series of tasks and will keep it secretly until the composer gets into a room.
Hi, I'm Hang Su. I'm from China and I am a postgraduate student here and I'm a musicologist. I love all about the vocal piece in music and my favorite singing style is operatic singing because when I in China, my major was operatic singing and the vocal performance.
It's called An Hour in a Minute because it's kind of a play on words. It's technically they're composing a minute's worth of music within an hour, but the hour in a minute is a kind of the documentary is capturing the emotions they feel within the hour that they are asked to compose a minute's worth of music.
Hello, my name is Towell. I'm a studying musicologist, and my research is in jazz, opera, and performance in piano. My research majorly focused on jazz history, especially the 1940s bebop, the Yard Charlie Parker.
It involves us sort of working collectively to design tasks that challenge the parameters, the compositional abilities of each composer. We've got 4 very different composers, so it's going to be quite difficult to design tasks that stretch each one of them each time. But it looks like the plan is to kind of start off by doing something that's relatively within their comfort zone and then moving towards things that are more obscure and that challenge their compositional ability more as the process sort of gradually moves on.
Hello, I'm Morgan. I'm a master's student at Bangor University. My area of interest is musicology, and within that I study British and American popular music from the 1960s and beyond. I'm also very interested in the genre of minimalism, and during my undergraduate degree I experimented with film composition, but during my masters I am primarily doing musicology.
I think it's more interesting to look at the sort of non-Western culture's influence on the tasks, really. So perhaps, I mean, without giving things away, there's an opportunity to develop a task where composers are asked to compose with perhaps a non-Western instrument. And obviously I have no knowledge of that, but obviously Stephanie and Hang and perhaps you guys have a knowledge of Chinese instruments that might be used within the tasks. So that's going to be something interesting.
So we can make some different points together. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Silun Chen. I'm a musicologist of Bangor University, and I've learned classical music and classical piano when I was a college student. But for now, I prefer to learn the pop music. I also like to dig into the music therapy after I being a postgraduate.
As music students, obviously, we all have different approaches, we're all of different sort of musical backgrounds. And we've got a group of musicologists here. So you're a musicologist,
One, two,
thanks
three,
so much.
4, 5
Five
musicologists.
And so we're actually divided on the table. Yeah, and on the other side we have composers,
Composer, and the performer.
performers.
Hi, I'm Madeleine Towell. I'm actually a performer, but when I heard about this project, I just knew that I wanted to be part of the composers team. I've composed for most of my musical life, but last year was like my dissertation kind of time, so I just composed sort of one piece throughout the year. I did little small ones. So I wanted to see this year that I still had that kind of creativity that off just being given a task, I could still compose something. So it's been really fantastic for that, and I kind of want to see that I can like evolve my compositional style and see how well I can compose in just an hour. I really like works by people like Tchaikovsky and Prokofiev, but I wouldn't say I write in a style at all similar to them. I think really depending on what task I'm set depends on my compositions. I like to write kind of tonal, easy to listen to music. When I'm writing for piano, I can't do too many things at once, so I might just do a basic melody in my right hand and then some basic chords in my left hand. And then you can add, when you've got the Sibelius open, you can add little interweaving lines in the middle, you get some polyphony going on, which is something you just can't do, well, I can't do physically with my hands at the moment on the piano.
Hello, my name is Rhodri Williams, and I mainly write in a film composing style and music for media. One of the main aspects I'm hoping to get from this documentary and this project is hoping to challenge how I write creatively. I don't really have limitations of certain styles and stuff, so it would be interesting to challenge myself in writing just a piece for a certain instrument or an instrument I haven't experienced before, maybe.
So one of the main aspects I did with this project was get evolving strings just coming in and out with dynamics and sultasso, just to give that big feeling of emptiness. I normally just write for strings mainly. I get the initial chord progressions first, and then gradually get to some sort of a theme from that, really. And then I go on to mainly synthetic instruments to get just the atmospheric feel to the composition. Like everybody, I'm inspired by major composers. Your Hans Zimmers and your Harry Gregson Williams, those are people that I admire and try to reach the same level of composing. So
I'm Chiron Farrimond. I'm an electroacoustic and film composer. What I hope to get out of this project is to advance my abilities to write under pressure. So I thought it would be a very interesting experience to take part in a project of this nature, and I hope it would be fulfilling. I've used a range of different plugins and programs to actually write my music. I use a programming environment known as Max MSP to write some plugins that I can use to effect in different ways. got an example here. It was processed through one of the plugins I had wrote. It takes an audio sample, puts it through a multitude of different modules such as bit crushers, filters, stutterers. You got something like this. So it's going something like 5 milliseconds up to 50 milliseconds back again, so it's speeding up and slowing down, and you can automate different aspects of that, and I've built in parts where I can attach my keyboard and I can manually change the sound and evolve it.
Hi there, my name is Jonathan Roberts. I'm a composer, and I'm really looking forward to sort of having the challenges which we'll face to really broaden our sort of creative horizons. The thing I'm most hoping to get out of this is sort of the reassurance that I can compose without the aid of electronic software. I did practical music tech in my first year and failed it. So I have really no sort of confidence whatsoever with programs like Pro Tools and Logic. They really aren't my area. I much prefer to use, staffs and notation. So for example, my most recent work was sort of based off the Menai Bridge, and I thought it'd be a fantastic idea to base the music off the spans and the dimensions of the bridge itself. So I sort of worked it out in a mathematical way and then applied that into a musical way by scaling it up to the intervals and pitches which corresponded to various heights and lengths. The way I sort of compose usually is to use a kind of, it's sort of a pseudo, almost a minimalist kind of way in which I start off with a chord and then build that up and then try and turn that into a piece.
During the first 2 weeks of the study, the composers and musicologists met. They discussed how the project should be developed and how the tasks should be designed to allow composers full creativity.
So literally, sort of this week we do the exercise, film everyone doing it, and then afterwards get everyone to say a comment about it, sort of what they might expect in later weeks and sort of what they think about it. Which I think that'd be good, and so we get good footage.
No one in the group had designed or participated in a similar project. The group decided to do a neutralising task that allowed everyone to gain the same experiences. We asked one of the composition lecturers, Jessie, to design a task for us. In 5 minutes, we had to compose a 1 to 2 minute piano piece, but the piano lid had to remain closed.
I'm just excited to see what the end result will be. I'm just excited to see how we're going to react. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm excited to start.
Me too.
Okay, so it's a week one task. This is the task set by Jessie. So let's see what he set us.
I actually really enjoyed this task. I think there was definitely an unknown about it. I don't know, I went in thinking this is going to be the worst thing ever, I'm not going to have any ideas. And maybe because the first task we only had 5 minutes, but I was having ideas left, right and centre, it was really easy to just start on it. I think it was really interesting to try making music out of the piano without having the keys. So it made it more of a percussive score than a harmonic score, which was nice, but I think it's something very different to what I'm used to composing.
Ooh, fun.
I was a little bit nervous when I sort of walked through the door. I wasn't sure what was going to be on the piece of paper because I kind of expected Jessie to give us something quite difficult, but it turns out it wasn't that difficult. I began by kind of just banging the piano in a kind of repetitive rhythm, and then almost like in a minimalist style I started adding things to it. By the end I was sort of using the pedals as sort of drums in a way.
It took me a while to sort of work out maybe what I should do, how I should use the piano, especially because we couldn't open the lid and play it normally. So I just sort of put my foot down on the sustain pedal and started hitting it, and sort of you got all these really nice resonances from just hitting it. So I kept the pedal down and sort of hit different parts of the piano to see if it changed the sound, changed the sort of timbre of it.
I feel strange. I have no such experience before, and it's kind of nervous. It's a in fact, I have no idea about the instruction at the first 3 minutes because it said 1 and 2 and with strange marks. I don't know what it means. I can't understand this at all. Oh my God! Oh, what's this strange mark? What does this number mean? Oh my God! This word, I don't know this word. Oh my God! How is it in here?
When are we supposed to be doing this? Sorry, experiment first thing.
Today.
Yeah.
As soon as this part's done.
Okay.
What, the first exercise?
Yeah.
Right.
No, it was the
5 minutes.
neutralizer,
Yeah.
as you want to put it. Yeah.
It's just so everyone knows what kind of
Remember
reaction.
you mentioned that we should all do it, just like go into a room and yeah, do that today.
So like,
Does anyone know what the instrument is?
no, we haven't designed that yet.
Should we get somebody else?
Should we get
So yeah, that's the problem. Is that
I thought, didn't you want to say the teachers would do it, the lecturers might?
yeah,
First week, yeah.
Should we remind them of that?
yeah, we need to get. We'll get like see if I want in the other room.
It's generally just a practice, basically, is what
Yeah,
But
like
we can film it and you
Yeah.
can do a bit of that.
yeah, like because what the plan was is to sort of use this week to test everything.
Yeah.
With the time limits being an aspect, I realised that my composition ideas started coming quicker. It was very challenging but very rewarding in my opinion because I don't normally compose in a graphic score. I approached the task by using the piano mainly as a percussion instrument, so the first aspect was trying to find some different rhythms and then just guide the composition from that idea really.
When I pick up the paper, what I'm thinking, that's, oh my God, I have to compose. Actually, I feel pretty confused about this task because I don't have any experience of composition before, and it's really a big challenge for me. But I think I need to accept this challenge and just do it.
I think it's interesting to feel how composers do their compositional work in this process. And to be honest, I have no approaches to compose it because I don't know something about compose. So I just put five lines and write some notes and just like that, very simple way.
I did very much enjoy having to think of new ideas and having to come up with those ideas at such a short notice as well.
Now it says the cover is closed and must remain so throughout your composition.
I had to draw on my experience of how to use the instrument in different ways and then how to apply that to a new piece of music.
I assume it means this cover and not this one. I hope so anyway.
I was quite worried actually that this it would be a totally random instrument and one which maybe I don't know that much about.
Oh, listen to that.
But after it turned out to be a piano, then I was quite glad and I was happy to get to work and I really did enjoy it.
I feel exciting but a little bit nervous because this is my first time to join the project like this. I love to compose, but I never composed it before. First, I think it is easy, but when I write down it, I feel, oh my God, I have no enough time to do it. We just have 5 minutes to do a music piece, so I think it is a challenge. In task 1, as musicologists, we prepared an image for the composers. This picture is about a turbulent sea with a volcano. Because this is not a peaceful sea and the weather is clouded, we would like to see composers create a vocal piece by using the emotion from this picture. We hope they can enjoy it.
We wanted to do something, we wanted to design something that everyone would feel comfortable with and everyone could approach on the same kind of level, and I think we achieved that because we decided to design something vocal, so it didn't favour anyone who perhaps could play a certain instrument or someone who was stronger than others in a different style of composition.
So nervous. I don't know, Jessie's task was really nice and it was something that I'd wanted to do, so I was terrified that I was going to be so far out of my comfort zone that I was just going to be lost, but no, yeah, it was a good task, I really enjoyed it. Okay, that's a terrifying picture. So it's like a storm and a volcano kind of scene. The first task, I'd gone in and I know exactly what I was going to do straight away. I think this task, I did spend some time thinking about other ideas first. So playing something on the piano and being like, oh, I like that, and then thinking, no, that's not going to work for this task, I need to scrap that straight away. So it's quite interesting to have that kind of sort of really strict time where you have to cut something out. Thinking back to it, I don't think it's the best composition I've written. It's nice, it's pretty, it's a minute long. I'm sort of proud of what I did in an hour, but I think I've probably written better music. I've only written one choral piece, so I'm not very aware of what I'm meant to be doing for singers, but it helps that most of it was in range for my own voice, so I could sing most of it. So I could work out what was doable and what wasn't. I used the piano at the start and then I scrapped my idea straight away. So, I don't know, I definitely used it at the beginning, but I think the more and more the task went on, it was more me kind of singing out my laptop and writing down what I was singing because I could. If I'd have longer, I'd definitely change the lyrics. There's a really bad lyric somewhere in there about just do your best or something really terrible, so I definitely want to change that. I'd also like to add in a couple more harmonies and maybe extend it into sort of like a verse kind of structure, just to have it repeating and like changing each time.
At first, we choose many abstract pictures, but Towell said it's very difficult to analyze, so we changed a concrete one.
But it also got a very diverse result.
Yes.
The first topic is I opened up the envelope and then I saw the picture, and it was a fantastic picture. When I look at this image of the magma going into the sea, I sort of get an absolute juxtaposition. I guess it was somewhere like in Hawaii maybe, where magma and lava meets water head on, like the elements crashing together, and it gave me lots of ideas to put into my piece of music. What we have there is a simple cluster of an A, an A sharp and a B put them together. It gave me a chance to use sort of extended techniques such as whispers as well, and strange vowel sounds. The steam, which will be a whisper, like a hissing sound. For my special project last year in my third year, it was a math setting, so that's really the first head-on approach into vocal music I'd had. So we have this chord here. With me, it's always a case of 5 more minutes. If I'd left the house 5 minutes more, I would have got here on time and that kind of thing. So if I'd had 5 more minutes, I would have been able to finish it off properly and make sure that it didn't have any errors, and I didn't write things incorrectly and that sort of thing. I really struggled to write music from scratch without being inspired by something. So so it gave me a nice starting point to have a picture and to work with that.
I think it will probably become easier as the weeks go on to design certain tasks, and we've already got some ideas which we need to discuss today for the next task, and they are going to become more experimental and more challenging as the weeks go on.
I spent quite a while just sort of flailing around, not knowing what to do, because I started out by just doing a chord sequence, and then from that chord sequence I built a melody upon it, how I would normally compose, and then I kind of realised it had a photo to compose it for, because I was playing it in all these nice chords and all these nice melodies, and it's like, oh, it needs to be a lot more kind of dissonant. It was a similar melody to before, but I started putting in some accidental, so I put in a few sharps and flats. I think I put it in something like D minor, but I was naturalising some of the notes in that key. The way that it was built was this sort of rhythmic fragment that was then varied in some way. It was sort of verse-chorus structure or a 32-bar form kind of thing, where you've got both the function of a verse but also the function of a chorus, because you've got the same melody and harmony, but instead the lyrics have changed. So what I did was I started word setting it, and I really started enjoying it there because I love my lyric writing. So I made some really sort of dark, demonic lyrics. It's something quite unsettling. I like writing that kind of music, really dark atmospheric music. I am hoping to see some sort of acousmatic or electroacoustic task in the future. Not sure how I would actually fare in that, because when I compose acousmatically, I do spend a lot of time. So even for me, it would be a challenge.
I think the use of dissonance definitely kind of reflected the nature of the piece of art. You know, I thought it was a scene of natural disaster.
It's, I think, the first exercise is a little out of control, but anyway, it's an interesting exercise. We got a lot of experience from this, and now I know your guys' style ability.
I didn't thoroughly enjoy the task, but it was one of the things I did struggle was just having that limitation of just vocal, really, because if I was to do that task really with more an area to experiment with instruments, I would have actually added more strings and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a good experience in the end though. I went for something quite modal in the end. I thought that would be quite easy really, and I think modal vocal music really is something that's quite interesting. And I was going to initially have more voices, but time felt a bit short in the end. So I got my initial ideas from the piano, and then I just went on, I had a vocal sample really, so I could use that to just get a general idea of how the finished product would actually sound like. So. The next step would have been maybe actually just add more harmony and maybe more voices, and in terms of mixing and mastering as well, if I did have more time. But one of the aspects I did actually forget to do was the actual breathing and stuff. I had to actually adjust the composition at the end really, just to get some kind of breaks in there.
The theme of task 2 is the sound of materials. In the box, we prepared some kitchen tools like glasses, water, chopsticks, forks, and so on. And composers could only use those materials that we prepared for them. Hope they like it.
The intention this week really was to make it much harder for the composers. And in doing that, we wanted to just do something really unconventional. So we wanted them to work with perhaps items you find in your kitchen, such as cups, chopsticks.
It was quite a daunting aspect, just seeing a box in front of you and no idea what it was really. And as soon as I opened the envelope and saw that the final piece was going to be about mainly kitchen instruments, I thought it's going to be a challenging aspect really, because I normally compose around harmony and melodies and such. I'm going to do one part where I'm going to use the hangers as percussive sticks and use the box itself as one of the, I'm playing on 4 different instruments, percussive instruments really. You could say the rhythms are quite action-based film music type rhythms, but it's not really just something that I've composed before really. To be fair, I actually enjoyed this task more than the first one, basically just for the fact that I didn't have as much limitations as the first task. I normally just get different ideas from different instruments, just get the composition to just develop from a numerous amount of instruments instead of one. I think mainly because the instructions said that you could use the piano for tonality. Maybe some went and tried to compose a tonal piece, but I just pushed aside the piano and just concentrated on working on logic, basically, just to get the rhythms down and just to get that loop going so I could just develop.
It was interesting the way composers put different levels of water in the glasses and how that created different pitches and resonances. But I particularly liked Chiron's because it looked like it could be played as an ensemble or as an individual percussion piece. And I think this project could benefit from performance, and I'd really like to incorporate one, or if not all of those pieces from the previous task.
As soon as I opened the box, I thought, oh, there's wine glasses in there, so obviously make a harmonium or a harmonica, I think that's what it's called.
Are you kidding me?
But because the wine glasses were either not crystal or just were too small, I ended up giving up on that idea because I couldn't make them really vibrate at all. I had a rummage of the instruments or the other pieces in there, but I didn't really take those into account. I thought maybe I would use the oven pan, but because it would have seemed a bit out of place. It could have been one of those things where I had the 5 wine glasses in the end actually on it, so as I hit the wine glasses it would have made the actual pan resonate or something like that. It might have been interesting to play with that timbre. Okay, so that's the back right and the front left. So in the end I ended up having the wine glasses sort of in opposite corners being the same pitch, and what I played on is I had it notated where it was staccato if you hit the rim, so it was the little dot above the note, and then it would be just a normal note if you hit it from the side, because I noticed that if you hit it from the rim it would be a lot more percussive, but if you hit it from the side you'd get more of a pitch out of it. I enjoyed the second task the most because that type of setup is more in the realm of what I like doing, recording sounds, playing with them, try and create something that's a bit unorthodox, whereas the first task was quite a bit out of my comfort zone to a certain extent. I've only recently started going into composing 2 pictures. I've only really started embracing my film composer side.
About 2 years ago, I watched a video about a famous Chinese composer, and in the video he introduced his workshop, and in his workshop everything can make music, like copper stairs which can produce musical scale, and the paper hand on a big column could be used as percussion. And that video ignited me to think about this task.
I thought that it was a very clever idea. I think so, anyway. And it gave you a chance to sort of make music in a really unusual way, using random items like glasses and water. I didn't quite manage to finish the task. I think I got about 40 or 50 seconds of music done because I always leave it too late to start writing the music down. I think I should start earlier, really. I sort of ended up finding pictures on various glasses and then using that. And then I found this on an empty water bottle. You got 2 octaves, depending on how hard you hit the bottle. If you hit it really hard, you get the octave above. You could get, I think either a D sharp or a C sharp in terms of the pitch. I think it was a D sharp. You may have noticed I kind of did a Steve Reich-esque piece where I added in, different things each time and used additive processes, and so I kind of went for a piece of music like that, and that was really interesting actually. Yeah, it was good.
As composition isn't something that's completely familiar to us, I think being given a task to compose something would inevitably develop our strengths as you know, instead of categorising us as composers, musicologists and performers, to some extent we're all part of those three. They all bed into one another.
I read the instructions first, and I remember someone down the bottom was like, you can leave the room to get water, and I was like, oh, look at them, I was like laughing at it like, oh, we can have water breaks, and then I opened the box and realised what was inside, and then I was like, oh, I've been stupid, this is why we're allowed to get water. But yeah, I opened the box, and my first thought was, well, I'll put pictures to the wine glasses. So I was going to actually fill them up properly, and I came to the point, I was like, well, I know what notes I want them to sort of drone on, and I'm not going to alter throughout the piece. So I kind of sat down on the piano and just worked out what kind of cluster chord I wanted. So then I just wrote down that those were the notes I wanted, and I kind of tested how loud the pitches were going to be if I kind of circled the top. But I was really struggling to find like different pitches and different things to do with it, because actually after a while it got very repetitive and very boring. So at first I was like, oh, this is going to be an amazing task, and then after a bit I was like, what do I do with this combination of instruments to make the task and the composition exciting for everyone else? And then I went back to the wine glasses and I realised that if I counted them all up and there was something like 15, and I had 5 different pitches or something, so I said there'd be 3 for each pitch. So then that helped me a lot. I think the previous task was much easier in a way to compose, because straight away it's more like what I'm used to. I was like, oh, I can do this. But I think my composition last week was probably weaker. It wasn't contemporary, whereas this week definitely was a contemporary composition. It was definitely something that I'd see people like John Cage doing kind of stuff like this, like with his waterwork. So it's definitely more contemporary than what's come before. So in a way, I think it's a better composition. And that's my time up.
So for task 3, we've decided to mix things up a little bit and actually have a break from designing the tasks ourselves, paving the way for the composers to design the tasks this week. We have absolutely no idea what to expect, but the results are actually going to be really interesting, just to see how we as musicologists react to, firstly, being asked to compose something, secondly, being asked to compose something in less than an hour, and something that I expect will be fairly out of our comfort zone.
I think interesting about what the task that we just set was, though, it's very similar to something that we would get set as composers from the lecturers, whereas what we've been set by the musicologists has been stuff that's been different to what we've been doing, so it's been challenging our creativity in different ways. It's not seeing if we could do what a lecturer would say, but it's seeing what we can do with this, so like with the glasses, like what we have.
I think it's very difficult for me because it's my first time to compose the songs, and I have no experience about the composing. I choose the solo voice because in China my major was vocal performance, so I choose something what I'm good at. Midnight Bridge. At first, I think it is a bridge. I don't know how to use my emotion to it because no any emotion in the picture. So I just choose the Chinese music, yes, like Chinese style of the song. I forget the company. Because 1 hour, at first I think, wow, 1 hour is too long. But I write down 20 minutes, and the last 20 minutes, I go, oh my God, it's too short. The time is not enough. So I just write the main melody to it.
I did think it was a lot of work though, but if the musicologists enjoyed it, then I guess it was fine, because we had the element of writing a piano accompaniment and a solo piece, but then we also had the element of the picture as well, which is quite an interesting one.
I have no enough time to think about a beautiful melody, so I just give a so-so melody. It's really, yes, it sounds like outdoor scenes, but not beautiful, not as good as I expect. And of course, you guys give me a topic, a title like Menai Stride. So I wanted to choose a Western instrument. First, I started to read the instruction very detailed and make sure every word I understand. And then the key, and then the melody, and then the development of chord. So it's not, I think it will not change anything, but I do think it's reflected a lot of things that I didn't realize as my potential ability or potential thoughts.
Do you think actually the musicologists did this in an hour is quite remarkable?
It is quite
compared to
to
comprehend that they haven't actually composed before really, and they had to do 3 different aspects in that task. But I think that as a whole was harder than maybe what we have done in
I think it was
yeah.
hard, I haven't really done anything like that before. I've composed during my undergrad degree in Bangor, but never under the pressure of only having an hour as a time constraint to compose something. So that was the hardest part for me, really. I think had I been given perhaps a day or a week, I would have been able to produce something really good, but well, not really good, but reasonably good. But yeah, for the expectation wise, I was expecting something quite weird, really, but it actually turned out not to be. It was quite normal, really, in terms of you could choose a solo instrument, and then it was a piano accompaniment, and it was to be based on a picture of the Menai Bridge, the Menai Straits, and it was nice to have a picture that you could sort of relate to, because obviously I know the area, so that was a bit easier. My piece was quite melodic. It was in the major key. I used cluster chords on the piano. The flute kind of, for me, resembles nature. It can sort of reflect birds, summery kind of spring type of sounds. It's quite a nice uplifting instrument, so that's what I went for.
Well, the previous task had focused on rhythm and focused on melody, but we hadn't one that focused on harmony. I mean, there's multiple facets of music you can focus on, so tonality and texture being 2 others. I thought it might have been good to try and focus on something that was especially combining things.
I really enjoyed it. I chose the solo voice was piano accompaniment because I think that that's the easiest way for me to do something like composing. I saw a bridge up on the sea, and I just created a mind picture in my mind, like a girl was walking through the bridge and then she was singing all the way. So I didn't put any lyric into my composition, just like singing very random. I think it's just like the first task we set for your composers. So that's the firmer things. We will set more complex task. I'm not very clearly understand the harmony, what harmonies mean, but I just try to do it, and I think why I think it is easy because probably I didn't take many elements into account, so I can just do it very easy.
So it's given us a good idea as to what the others are sort of capable of in terms of composing, and maybe we'll have sort of like a reaction from them for the next task.
I choose erhu because it's easier for me to compose. Because in Chinese style, we only have 5 songs. That is the pentatonic scale, which is do, re, mi, sol, la. So you don't have to take too much time to think about the dissonance or consonants, because most of the interval combination is consonants. So it's a good way to save time. Actually, I think that picture is hard to evoke my inspiration. So I think my final piece has nothing to do with that picture. Firstly, I wrote the erhu solo piece, then I wrote piano accompaniment. It's a difficult part for me because I think you have to link erhu solo piece to the piano piece. But since time is really limited, so I just changed some of the notes and cadence of erhu solo piece and used it as the main melody of piano piece.
In the task 4, composers are asked to compose a piece of music in around 1 minute by using guzheng, and the piece of music should be in the genre of polyphony. The guzheng is based on the pentatonic scale, and it is in the specific pitch in major D. And we also put the description of how to sound it on a sheet to composers. It is really challenging for composers as they are all Western composers, and it is really interesting to see how they would find in this task.
It's week 3, clearly this is my task, but I'm going to read the envelope first. I've heard the instrument before, but I have absolutely no idea how to write for it. So my first thought was, right, well, I'm not going to write in a kind of Chinese traditional style. I'm going to scrap that, it's going to be Eastern meets Western. So I got out Sibelius and was like, we'll just use a piano score and then we'll just edit it. This piece should be a polyphonic piece, counterpoint. Oh no. I kind of started by playing around on the strings, seeing what I could do. Realised I didn't know how to change the pitch of the strings, even though it was clearly very obvious in the diagram, I just couldn't work my head around it. It was challenging. It was nice being back on this side, doing the composing. I think, I said to the camera at the end of my little recording, I said, I've done it, and it's a piece, but I wouldn't say it's the best piece I've ever written. I'll explain something. What I didn't realise is it's meant to be tuned to a C pentatonic scale. But when I played it on the piano, it sounded like a D, so my whole piece is written on D, and I'm not sure if that's going to make the piece harder or easier to play. Probably harder. I think if I had someone else who could perform the piano, like I've written it in 2 different lines, so I could perform one line with my 2 hands and they could perform the other one, because I'm not very good at multitasking like this. So I feel like if there was someone else who could play it with me, I could do it. And yeah, it's a minute long, as usual. I think that's pretty much what we had to do. Unless I missed something really badly. That's great. Done. One more to go.
I talked to Karen before we set up the topic. Karen said, "Oh, we got rhythm, we got melody, we got chord. What left? Texture. Yes, texture." So we set up for polyphony on the point piece.
I remember Morgan saying in the first couple of weeks of the project that he wanted to give the composers a non-Western instrument, and here we are, task 4, the composers are given a guzheng. But I've never played with something like that before. I've composed with it in sample form, meaning it's in a few of the libraries I have, but that's mapped to a keyboard. I wouldn't say it was hard to compose, but it was definitely tricky to a certain extent. The piece, I sort of developed it like previous pieces where the idea repeats and slowly gets more complex rather than having different sections. It was more like it's the scale, then it goes in octaves, and then one hand starts getting more complex and the other one gets more complex, and then it's got this kind of, I suppose, counterpoint-esque feel to it. My normal composition is a mixture of both melody and chordal stuff. You know, I don't instantly start with melody, I don't instantly start with chords. I suppose the scale was the melody because it just ascended. So I just copied that into 3 bars in Sibelius and just kept repeating it and adding things. If you want to do chords, then you've got to either be very good at picking with multiple fingers, or you leave it in the original tuning, don't touch the pitch side and just use both hands on that side, and that way you can do counterpoint and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we were really interested in seeing how these composers would kind of react to being given an instrument they'd never played before, weren't we? And see whether they were able to understand it and how it maybe challenged their previous experiences of using instruments.
It was terrifying, actually. I kind of did my best to try and learn how to play the instrument, but I just wish I'd been a bit more educated in Far Eastern instruments, so maybe I could have done it a bit better. So I basically sort of wrote out a piece in Western sort of style notation with 2 hands using the pitches on the right hand side of the guzheng, and then I kind of and then it was a counterpoint as well. I think because you had the same notes in both the left hand and the right hand on the guzheng, or I kind of looked at it in a way that it would work on the guzheng, where you pluck one string and then pluck another one, but then when you're plucking the other one, you play the original string with the other hand. I kind of found, looking at the strings on the guzheng, like, it messes with your eyes, like, and then I'd like lose where the pitch was. I was like, no, I've got to find it again on the piano.
Personally, I'd never heard of the guzheng before this task, so I think it was really good that we've got Chinese students, obviously.
No, the truth is, guzheng is the only instrument we can go in banjo.
Yeah.
It was quite a different experience to what I usually do. I do have samples of guzheng on my computer, but I haven't actually used them before in any compositions I've done, so it was quite a new experience for me. But in terms of my initial very simple understanding of Chinese music is that they use a lot of articulations in their music, so I try to include some different styles like glissandi and stuff. So, and there's a lot of note bending, so I tried to do that myself, but I couldn't really. But I know the guzheng can do it, but I couldn't actually do it myself. I had half of my ideas from the actual guzheng itself, and then some of my melodic ideas from the piano as well, so just a bit of both, really. I did split the 2 parts because, as the question stated, we had to write in counterpoint. Maybe if I just did one of the parts, I couldn't do both of them really, just left hand and right hand.
This is task 5, the final one. We sent 4 composers into one room and made them to make a hard choice. One of them needed to pick up one piece from our 4 pieces, an EDM, an opening and ending for our documentary, and bossa nova and a string trio. We wanted to see how they choose do they cooperate.
You want to open the envelope?
Like Top Gear, innit?
Oh god.
Oh, this would be the best episode of Top Gear with music.
This is it, the final challenge! The way it was laid out, it kind of catered to everyone's needs.
Originally I was like, this is great, like we've all got something we can do, it's like individual, there's like something that each of us like kind of has a slight strength in, or something that we can all try that's new, but yeah, it's interesting from there on out.
Yeah.
Oh, so we don't do it together? Oh my goodness.
We initially thought it would be an idea to ask them to compose a piece together in a certain style or a style of their choice. But then after a bit of thinking, after a few meetings, we thought, actually, why don't we propose 4 contrasting styles? We discovered from questionnaires that we set out at the beginning of this filming process.
There are 4 topics here. Each composer can choose one topic. 1, an EDM, an electronic dance music piece.
We sort of immediately divided ourselves into like 2 pairs, whereby 2 of the tasks, one was the electronic dance music, and then the other one was the bossa nova one. And then there was the string trio, and then the flute piece. Was it a flute piece?
It was just the opening and closing.
Oh, right,
I
just
made it
yeah,
a
yeah.
piece.
Number 2, a piece that can be used as the beginning and the end of the documentary. You can choose to write it down on paper or create a file on the computer. Number 3, a string trio. The requirement for this piece is that only the violin is used to compose. 4, a bossa nova piece. The instrument options are only drum and bass. You can use those 2 instruments as many as you want.
The composers were allowed to work together to produce these pieces, or they were allowed to do it individually, but they had to be in the same room. And the intention was to see, firstly, whether they would work together. If so, how they would do it.
Well, I initially wanted to do, had an idea of doing the music for the documentary thing, but as we discussed, because I had the laptop, I should broaden my horizons really and just try and do the DM one.
I suppose I wouldn't have done the string trio. That would have just been something I wouldn't have been able to do.
It was the electronic dance music which I would have sort of like said no to immediately.
I think that was the first one. I just thought, no, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not even sure how I'd start that. But then I also thought, bossa nova, I don't really know much about bossa nova either. So I was like, where do you start with this?
So EDM is Rhodri.
I've never done something before like that, but I'll try.
Chiron is doing the bossa nova.
I need to do a bit of research because I've forgotten what blooming bossa nova is.
Which one do you want, Maddie?
I don't mind if you choose, and I'll do it, because I don't mind if I do those.
Do you want to do the piece at the beginning and the end then? If you
Okay.
play it on the flute, and then I'll...
Is everyone okay if I take a solo flute, please? Just because I really want to write a piece that I can then play at some point in this documentary as a performer.
That's very much actually, yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll do the violin trio, yay!
We had to ask Matthau if it meant if it was a string trio where you could only use a violin to compose, or if it was 3 violins. It turned out to be the 3 violins. So the hardest part was knowing about sort of a double stopping and that kind of thing, and which notes are possible. I think maybe a couple of the notes aren't, but I'll have to double check. It was very nice being able to sort of compose for a common instrument, because that was something that I really struggled with on the previous task.
I'm going to shoot into the room.
Are we allowed to shoot into the room?
Well, I can't really do it here, can I?
I was a little bit triggered when I had to sort of be in here, and they haven't got any headphones, so I sort of said, look, I'm not going to be able to do it in here on the piano, because I just couldn't concentrate really. So I went into another room and went from there.
First step I went with was actually thinking what is actual electric dance music and what is popular at the moment. So prediction was going to be a big element on it really. And all of these producers spend hours and hours on expensive instruments and plugins to actually get the sound they want. I had to just put the prediction side to the side really for this exercise and just concentrate on what my initial ideas were. So I just took inspiration from EDM artists that I've listened to on the radio and such.
I've written 2 bossa nova tracks before, one for songwriting in second year and another just sort of randomly. So bossa nova was just a kind of moment, sort of fist bump. It was fairly constricted for being only for bass and drums, but I had to kind of get creative, so I just had, I think it was 3 double basses, a slap bass and a bass guitar, so it was something new for me.
I think you had a bit of trouble, didn't you, Maddie? You started out and then you sort of had to quit your original idea.
I've never had that. With the having an hour, you just have to start with whatever you've got and then just keep going with it. But my original idea, I liked it, but it wouldn't have worked, and that was the problem. I knew I didn't have very long, and you don't really have time to change your ideas. And to be honest, I'm not really happy with it. If I'd had longer, if I had a good day, I'd have gone home, picked up my tap shoes, bought some wood, been able to sound out the idea. Quite a lot of it I was trying to kind of get away with on carpet, and you can't really hear the sound you're making. And I'd like to have it more, it's kind of quite a lot in sequence. I'd quite like to have it a bit more free, but with the time constraints, if I hadn't had it in sequence, I wouldn't have had it finished. If we'd had hours, I think we might have been a bit more oh, do you think this works? But because we only have an hour, you kind of have to concentrate on what you're doing, because otherwise you won't finish your task, let alone think what the person next to you is doing.
We were interviewing the composers after the task, and Maddie in particular was, she felt as though she would have been better off, or she would have found it easier had she been restricted to perhaps a certain style or a certain set of instruments. I wonder whether she would have said the same thing at the beginning of the documentary, at the beginning of the process of this project. And to be honest, I don't think she would have. I think she would have said, no, I don't want to be limited in my creativity. But it proves the theory, really, that you take the resources away or strip a composer of their resources, they actually become more creative.
Our conclusion from this task is it's like a case study. Yeah.
And we didn't have Chinese composers. It's a shame. If we have, we can do some contrast, compare.
Working together.
That would have been interesting.
If possible, I want to do more exercise, because I found that it's very hard to come out your comfortable zone or your regular composing style. It needs a very long time and systematic education that can change your style.
But overall, I think the tasks have been really successful, and I think the most important thing is people have enjoyed themselves and learned more about their style of composition and developed their skills.
Start? Hope they like it. Okay? Yeah!
There you go, that's my composition. An hour and a minute, only this one took 5 minutes. Oh well. I'm just gonna go.